news you need. Live. Good evening and welcome to a rather later edition of the Locker Room. As you can tell, I am absolutely buzzing. It has been Scottish Cup 4th round weekend this weekend. We are going to look back at the game from earlier on this afternoon and some of the games from yesterday. We are on till 9 o'clock. My name is Graham Duthie, as you all know, and I am joined by my usual sidekick. It's Mr. Dave Smith. Dave, how are you, pal?
10 o'clock, but yeah, all good.
I meant 10 o'clock. I'm too happy, I'm buzzing. Yeah, we are here till 10 o'clock tonight, so we will be here just for an hour. Any comments you've got to make on the Hearts game or any of the games from yesterday, let us know. Before I start with the game from earlier on today, I'll just give you a rundown of the scores from yesterday. I'm sure you all know. It finished Celtic 5, Morton 0, Alloa 1, Falkirk 2, Arbroath 0, Motherwell 2, Dundee United 3, Stirling University 0. It was Hamilton 0, Ross County 0, but Hamilton beat Ross County 5-3 on penalties after a 0-0 game before. It was Killie 1, Dumbarton 0. Partick Thistle beat Dunfermline 4-2 after a 1-1 draw in normal time and extra time. St Mirren beat Dundee 3-0 on penalties after a 0-0 scoreline. It finished Stenhousemuir 1, Livingston 3, and it finished St Johnstone 0, Rangers 1. But this afternoon in the Edinburgh Derby, the much anticipated Edinburgh Derby that I was really nervous for, it finished Hibernian 0, Hearts 3. George Kennelly opened the scoring for Hearts after 10 minutes. Lawrence Shankland with his 20th goal of the season after 72 minutes. Shankland did get sent off after 91 minutes for a second booking, which for me is never a yellow card. But Toby Sibbick added a third goal in 96 minutes. Dave, I'll come to you first, mate. What was your thoughts on that game this afternoon?
Comfortable. There's no other way to put it. Hibs did have some good possession play. They had some good play in the middle of the park, but good play in the middle of the park is not going to win you games. Notably, Hearts were more reliable throughout the goal. They were more effective throughout the goal, and were a lot more showed a lot more composure for it as well. Absolutely brilliant. Ginnelly, very, very good strike from him. He obviously got to a nice area and just cut it from an angle and got a good strike. My favourite goal from today was Shankland's, because I think Shankland and Humphreys is a good interchange, good 1-2 between the two of them, and then Shankland just a lovely finish. Sibbick, that was a really, really good finish as well. But yeah, all round a very good afternoon's work. And as you kind of said Twitter yourself, Graham, Sibbick can easily put up front for Hibs right there, because I've touched it before. Hibs are a one-man team through Martin Boyle. Nisbet does offer a threat, but he's not as purposeful and he's not as effective as Martin Boyle. And although Nisbet didn't do much today, of course, you've seen it yourself, Graham, that Hibs fans might despise me for saying this, as I'm not trying to defend Lee Johnson by any stretch of imagination here, but I think Lee Johnson's bad run is ultimately down to the fact that he's not got enough players in the forward areas. I don't think it's because Lee Johnson's a rubbish manager. He's not the best manager Hibernian Football Club will employ. I'll put that thoroughly out there. What I would say as well is that I think Hibs are in deeper trouble because Lee Johnson hasn't recruited in the final third. Had he done that, and had he recruited better players such as Harry McCurdy, for example, it'd be an interesting insight to see where Hibs are at. And I seen a tweet today saying Harry McCurdy's haircut he's not good enough for the haircut that he had. And I completely agree, because, yeah, it was a poor performance from him as well this afternoon. But from Hearts' point of view, a comfortable afternoon. I don't think this was just a derby today, Graham. I think this was looking to see where both teams are at. It was encapsulated to see where both teams are at. Hibs, a club in disarray. Let's be blunt here. They are. Hearts, a club that you could say are the third best team in the country. They've shown that through results recently in particular. And they're also fighting for the Scottish. We'll get on to a draw. A very good tie for them at Hamilton. A tricky one, especially after what happened to Ross County yesterday. But a very good tie away to Hamilton in the next round. The only downside for me from a Hearts point of view, Graham, is Lawrence Shankland sending off. And me being an old school guy in terms of I've played the game, I've been in the game for a long time, and know how the game works. Nah, that didn't go down right with me. Never a booking in the first place, and didn't deserve to go. Shankland.
Yeah, Liam L, glad to see you watching, mate. Hope Graham does not keep professionalism. Haha. Well, I'm trying not to smile too hard here, mate. But Liam L about Lauren Shanklin, neither of them for me are bookings, especially in a derby for the first one. Just a reward with the two lads. And the second one, dear me, best not say my opinions. Now, for me, it's never a second yellow. He's going for the ball. But just in terms of Hearts, I mean, again, I've heard John Collins after the show saying, "Oh, that was never a 3-0 game." Do you know what? It doesn't matter. It's a derby game. It's a Edinburgh Cup derby game. It doesn't matter how well you play. You have to win. And Hearts win these derby games. That's now 9 games unbeaten in derby games. And I think, again, we didn't start the game that well. I thought Hibs started with a bit more intensity than us. But obviously, we get that opening goal, a great delivery again for Robert Snodgrass, and a brilliant finish for Josh Ginnelly. Were you a little bit surprised that Lee Johnson opted to play his new signing, Jimmy Jego, who only signed yesterday, in a big derby like this?
I'm not surprised, if I'm going to be brutally honest, because Jimmy Jego has always been signed by Hibs because Lee Johnson's identified there's a problem with a specific area in the park. And that's the one reason why I think he started today. Had Jego been a squad player, or a player that wasn't deemed to surpass requirements, but a player that you looked at and went, he's going to be on the bench and then come on and see how he gets on. Different story. But you can tell that Jego is immediately in Lee Johnson's plans. Because had he not been, I don't think Lee Johnson's even thinking of starting him. Would I have started other players? 100%. But starting Jimmy Jego suggests to me that although he's not just coming in as a player that's going to be just within the periphery of the team or sitting on the bench every week, he's a player that will play every week.
Liam L, as you said, Graham, games are won in each box. You can control a game, but if you do the best you can in both boxes, win the game. Well, exactly. I mean, Hibs had a lot of possession. They put a lot of balls in the box that Hearts dealt with brilliantly. Again, I'll get on to him shortly. But Toby Sibic was the best player on that pitch for me. He was absolutely brilliant. But Hibs had chances in that first half. At the back post, you had Josh Campbell with a shot just off the post. He had another header just wide. Hibs, in that first half, didn't play that badly. But Barry Anderson said on Friday about the Hearts Aberdeen game, Hearts were clinical when it mattered. Hibs today were not clinical.
Pardon me. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for a team to do so well, you need to be colossal on both boxes, as you guys have kind of touched upon. Now, a lot of Hearts' downfalls at the start of the season was because they weren't diligent and astute enough defensively. Hearts were conceding a lot of silly goals. There was a lot of exposure towards Hearts defensively as well, because Craig Gordon saved Hearts on a few occasions from perhaps losing all 3 points. Hearts have got a bit of stability now. Toby Sibic has grown into a good, but not only that, a big Hearts player fast. He's not just this player that's a youngster anymore. He's this player that's basically one of the first names in the team sheet for Hearts every week now. You've obviously got Shanklin. Shanklin knows where the net is. I mean, for him to score 20 goals for Hearts in a season, and we're not even at Burns night yet, there's some going. I mean, the last Hearts player to do that was John Robertson, and we all know just how good John Robertson was for Hearts. So that's very, very good. Now, is there still deficiencies within this Hearts side? 100%. As you said this afternoon earlier on social media, Barry Mackay, he doesn't really rise to the fame in big games. But at exactly the same time, I think Hearts have a lot of strength and depth, and that ultimately gets them through. Sometimes if one or two players aren't pulling up to the strings, depending on opposition, sometimes other players within the team can get players through, because Hearts obviously have a lot of quality in the midfield area, and that ultimately does play a deciding factor in terms of how Hearts obviously approach things and so forth. So a lot of positives as far as Hearts were concerned. from an Aberdeen point of view, obviously, we play Hibs next weekend, and I'm intrigued to see how that game goes from an Aberdeen point of view, because it's two sides that are underwhelming, two sides that are struggling right now. But from a Hearts point of view, let's be honest, Hibs are offering nothing right now in the final third, as we've touched upon. So Hearts were always going to be very, very quiet defensively all game anyway. I mean, they've needed Hearts to either be either be absolutely isolated defensively, or for Hibs to have a bit of quality in order for Hearts to be broken out in the final third today. But at the other end, we all know how much of a threat they can be. Stephen Humphries, I thought, was very, very good today. Simic was good, and Shankland does what he does by scoring goals. So all around, a lot of positives as far as Hearts are concerned.
It's funny because Lee Johnson has said that outside of Celtic and Rangers, Hibs have the best strike force in Scotland. It's not looking that way though, is it, Lee? And again, I said on Twitter as well, and I'm not being biased here, I really hope that this Shankland-Nisbet debate is put to bed now. Shankland again today, apart from the fact he obviously got sent off, he took his goal brilliantly. It's a great little bit of play out wide. Lovely ball into Humphries, a great ball back, and that finish is superb. And as you say, he's now got 20 goals this season. He's now the first Hearts player since 1992 to score 20 goals in a season. Again, I honestly think that Shankland-Nisbet thing is put to bed now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not so. The one thing that I think deserves to get a bit of a mention here as well, Graham, is he's not just scoring goals from 6 yards out or penalty spot or getting wee tap ins or whatever have you. Had you been getting that, I'd have had a completely different opinion on Lawrence Shankland altogether. He's scoring 15-yard strikes, he's scoring 18-yard strikes, edge of the box strikes, 10-yard strikes, angled strikes, shots that you obviously drive at the corner strikes, such as what you've seen today. He's scoring all different types of goals. It's not just nice, simple goals. He's got good relationships in terms of Humphries and Alan Forrest. At exactly the same time, a striker is there to score goals, and I do think Shankland gets underestimated a little bit in terms of the work that he does off the ball, because his work off the ball is very, very good, I feel. And that's been shown in terms of the goals he's scored this season, especially for Hearts. I'm going to speak about Shankland a little bit here from a Scotland persuasion, because I know when Graham Spears was on this show, there was this debate about Shankland. And Dundee United, when he was at Dundee United, it was never going to materialise the Scotland thing because they were playing the Championship. It has been extremely unfair in the current crop. Had he been playing in the Championship and getting Scotland call-ups, had he stayed under Tam Courts and scored 20 goals, understandably, he could maybe pick him. Belgium just never materialised. And Shankland, he made the best decision in his career, I feel, going to Hearts. Why? Because he plays with a manager he knows, and ultimately, he's getting goals under that manager he knows. Ultimately, Steve Clark needs to be knocking at phone and Robbie Nelson said, I need him in the squad in the match now.
How much do you think him getting the captaincy now that Craig Gordon's been out injured is actually helping him? Because I actually said to Barry Anderson on Friday, his link-up play and his hold-up play is actually very underrated.
Yeah, I think this whole thing with strikers getting captains, and it's the same with goalkeepers as well, man, but I find the whole thing with strikers getting captain either a hit or a miss, because it can either go very, very well or it could go unbelievably horrible, because I've seen strikers in the past get the captain's armband because they've reached a certain age or they've played so many games within that club and they've ultimately not had a good season where they've maybe went and scored 50 or 20 goals one season, scored 5 goals the following season. But in terms of Shankland, I think the fact that he's got a good cohesion behind him in terms of Forrest, in terms of Humphries, in terms of Cammy Devlin, Barry Mackay, I think the fact he's got that good support network with him, I think puts him in good stead, because if you don't have that, you're going to find yourself low in confidence and most importantly underwhelming, and that's never a good look for any side. So I think in terms of Lawrence Shankland, he's only going to grow as a result of this. And ultimately, when somebody like Craig Gordon returns, because let's be honest, Craig Gordon's not going to go and retire. When he returns, when Lawrence Shankland's still got the captaincy, he's only going to grow. He's only going to go from strength to strength. And ultimately, Hearts are going to get a lot of success through that. Now, he's not a leader in terms of his commanding on the park, but what he does do is you've seen a different side to his game this season in terms of he's wider on that off the ball presence. He's obviously got that good link up play, good interchange of play. But at exactly the same time, you can get others involved in the game, and that's only going to put Hearts in a better position come time.
I'm not being biased here, but I think Liam L makes a good point actually when he talks about like Lee Johnson talking about Hibs strike force, and Liam L says here that Qual, Humphreys, and Forrest are a better front three than what Hibs have got, and those guys are on the bench for Hearts today. And you look at that, you look at those three benches today, and we did have Forrest, Qual, Oda, Humphreys on the bench, even George Grant. We had things that could change that. I don't think Hibs have a lot of the benches that really could change that game.
Yeah, it's called the Newcastle guy.
Yeah,
It's just that I didn't actually recognise who that name was for a minute. But yeah, in terms of Hibs, I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. They didn't have a lot to replace. I mean, you were struggling to see where they were at, but this is what I'm trying to get across to you here. It's not because Hibs are a street below Hearts or they're in a position that's untenable in comparison to Hearts. It always becomes down to structure. It always comes down to structure. Now, Lee Johnson can have the best squad he possibly can have, but if he's always not going to get backed, he's always not got the replacements in place that Hearts do, he's not hiding to nothing. And that's exactly how it's turned out to be. 2 wins in 13 is not a good look at all, even for a club of Hibernian stature. Let's be honest, they've been in disarray for a while, and they're still in disarray at this very minute in time. They've been in disarray since Jack Ross left, if I'm going to be brutally honest. Jack Ross did superbly well in terms of guiding Hibs in European football, and it was pity. It was a pity to see Jack Ross's management career. I hate to see deteriorating because for all I know, I could see deteriorating and he goes and joins a club and does very, very well. And the memories start coming out. But the thing is that Jack Ross did superbly well to guide Hibs to a cup final. And they've had a rookie manager, Sean Morey, and they've had a manager that's not experienced in Scottish football, Lee Johnson. A man that's heavily reliant on the English lower league market in order to make ends meet at Hibs and make sure things come to fruition, which it's not. In terms of Johnson at Hibs, it got off to a good start. I mean, they were signing players, they were bringing in players, and let's be honest, with the likes of Martin Boyle involved, they had a presence, they had a reliability about them. But you get the feeling that teams are snuffing out Hibs now. Obviously, Boyle had his injury, and you do wonder Hibs have lost their identity altogether, and they picked up They picked up a very, very good win at Murrow a couple weeks ago, but at exactly the same time, it was far from impressive, and the problems that faced Hibs at the start of the month haven't faded away now.
I mean, if you look at the second half, I mean, again, Hibs had a lot of pressure, a lot of the ball, but I think it was mentioned in a commentary that you look at Eli Yuan, who is a really good player, but at times his final delivery, his final ball is really poor, and Hibs really, really struggled in the second half. They just couldn't break down a very, very strong Hearts defence with the likes of Kai Rowells, Alec Cochrane. You had Michael Smith again, who was excellent, and the outstanding Toby Siwick. I mean, Hibs in that final third just offered very little again, and not for the first time this season.
Yeah, it's a recurring theme regarding Hibs because I've mentioned this a couple of times now. Hibs will do well in terms of they'll have good interchanges of play, they'll get into good areas, they'll be strong on the ball, they'll have a good impetus on the ball, they'll have good possession of the ball. But the problem is in the final third, and that's the problem as far as Hibs are concerned. I don't think it's just a Kevin Nisbet or Martin Boyle point of view. The point if you snuff either of those two players out, but in coordination as well, if you obviously are a lot more organised whenever you play sides such as Hibs, you've got a very, very good chance of winning games of football because ultimately Hibs have an identity, but also they do not have a plan B. If we look at this other side, Robbie Nielsen was criticised for not having a plan B at Hearts. Now he does, I think. I think he does now. You're seeing a totally different dimension to Hearts now. Whilst for Hibs, they've got a plan A, they're plan A only.
I mean, Hearts are now 9 unbeaten. And again, I said to Barry Anderson on Friday that after the World Cup break, we are now, I think that's now 8 unbeaten. The run we've been on is fantastic. And he's now got this formation, the 3-4-3. And I think Liam mentioned it earlier as well, actually. Just trying to find his comment. It also helps we have a backline that's steady and not changing every week. And that is true. You know, we are keeping pretty much the same team, the same defence. Everyone knows the game. And again, although he maybe didn't have his best game today, Robert Snodgrass, again, has a really big influence on that side.
Yeah, I don't think Snodgrass needed to have a massive game or an effort like that. I mean, I was watching what he was doing at certain times in the game, and he was tidying the ball. He didn't have to do much. He's a forward-thinking player, Robert Snodgrass. He's quite good at being patient on the ball as well. He's quite good at getting balls out wide. He's quite good at obviously exposing opposition defences. Yeah, that's exactly what he did. He ticked all the boxes that Robbie Nielsen would have assigned him before the game, because his role would have been to tidy up play, make sure Hibs aren't getting on the front foot, and that's exactly what he did. Now, Robert Snodgrass maybe doesn't get the credit he deserves in that regard, because ultimately a lot is expected of Snodgrass because of the career he's had, but he is getting a bit older now, and having that experienced head does put Hearts in a stronger position than what it would have been back at the start of the season, because yeah, as I was touching on, I've watched Hearts a few times this season, either in the flesh or indeed on telly, and always looked a little bit isolated defensively at the start of the season. Now I think there's a little bit of a difference. You're seeing a bit more cohesion, organisation, and diligence about that play, and I think that's a good thing as far as Hearts are concerned, and something for them to go and build on. So there's a lot going right with Hearts right now, and they just need to keep that going.
I have to talk about Toby Sibbett because I was very critical of him in the past. But I think since that RFS game, I know it was only 11 side, but since that game and he got a standing ovation from the crowd, he's been fantastic. His form has improved massively. Defensively looks a lot better. And then he caps it off today with, you know, you're 2-0 up, you're down to 10 men. He makes a marauding run forward, exchanges passes with Dean Humphreys, and then a brilliantly delicate finish, chipped finish over David Marshall. Toby Sibbett is now becoming pretty much our first choice pick in defence.
Yeah, as I said earlier, Graham, he's a first choice centre half as far as Hearts are concerned. He's also one of the first names in the team sheet, primarily because of how he's grown into that position, but secondly, how he's grown into the way Hearts play. Because ultimately, for a player to play so well for a team doing so well, you need to fit into that position. And I mean, Toby Sibbett has grown massively. He's not only grown as an individual, but he's matured into a very, very good player. Liam Ellis came in here about Sibbett and contract obligations, and I think he will be offered a longer term deal if things keep improving from his perspective, because he's just obviously getting better and better all the time. So that's a huge positive as far as he's concerned. But I mean, there's only going to be a lot of positives now building forward, and I mean, I think the thing that he needs to add to his game a little bit more, and it's probably something that Nielsen and McCulloch in particular are working on, because they were both defenders in their respective playing careers, will be work on Sibbett obviously being a bit more of a danger at set pieces, because Hearts, they've not been as good this season at set pieces, but last season and previous seasons they were a very dangerous side by set pieces. But that might be something for Simic to go work on moving forward, just to improve his game more than anything else, in all honesty. But yeah, in terms of this one, I mean, he had the freedom of a leaf before scoring that third goal because Portis and Cole gave up. They knew there wasn't a way back at the game. Simic, Humphreys is better than it was, you said, but Simic got the freedom of leaf, and what a fantastic finish! And yeah, to cap off what was a fine afternoon for the youngster.
It was. I mean, again, Hearts didn't. I've seen Hearts play a lot better than that, but you know what's the number of Derby? It's a cup game. I couldn't care less how we do it. We're through. And in terms of Robin Nielsen, he was in the stand for that game today. That is now, incredibly, his first win as a manager at Easter Road. How big a moment will that be for Robin Nielsen?
Yeah, massive, massive. I mean, he was never going to get an easier opportunity to do it. I'm not going to lie to you in that regard. But exactly the same time, you've got to beat what's in front of you. It's an old cliche, but you've got to beat what's in front of you. And that's exactly what Hearts did. I mean, you'd have been looking at Hearts and had this result went the other way around. You'd have been looking at this and saying, how do Hearts evolve? How do Hearts develop? And how do Hearts make sure they're maintaining any expectations that they had at the start of the season? But on the go to the next round, and a lot of confidence heading into a trip to Hamilton. Sorry. Also, league wise, they can obviously continue to find momentum in the league because, as you say, 9 undefeated, and I want to be positive about it. But what I found rather intriguing and fascinating was obviously Shankland scored that goal to make it 2-0 today, Graham. And it's not as although Nielsen's celebrating and I thought that is obviously just stands for like a bunch of Joe Savage and co, but it's not like he's celebrating. He's on his wee mic, obviously speaking to coaches, demanding more, demanding better standards. And that's exactly, that resembles the type of coach he is. It resembles the fact that he's got high standards, Robbie. He demands a lot out of this Hearts side. And let's be honest, without sounding too jealous or anything like that, from an Aberdeen fan point of view, the way Hearts play would be a similar identity to how I would want an Aberdeen side to play, because they tick all the boxes for me in terms of they defend properly, the midfield area is compact, but they get it forward and they score goals. But they get on the front foot. They use the wingers properly and they get on the front foot. That's something that I would like to resemble for an Aberdeen side. I'm not trying to say for 1 minute that Robbie Nelson's going to take an Aberdeen job, but yeah, what I would say is the type of identity that Robbie's inherited on our Hearts side is the type of identity I would want for my team as well. So hats off to Robbie and Co for that, and yeah, they can take a lot of points from that.
Well, I do know that he's trying to add one more player, potentially Callum Patterson, if not him, then somebody else. But as Liam Mel said, I was going to say as well, after we beat Aberdeen 5-0, sorry, Dave, but Robbie's first thoughts after the game was, well, that's fine, but the next game's the biggest one, Easter Road. That is really good management because you're straight away thinking, we need to win this derby game. That's the most important game for us. And he's done it.
I mean, European football is bread and butter for Hearts. What I mean by that, sorry, just for the viewers out there, is finishing third is bread and butter for Hearts. But exactly the same time, we all know what Edinburgh football is all about. Now, I'm not from Edinburgh, but from the outside looking in, I know just how massive an Edinburgh derby is. Gary Locke is went on shows, went on things, especially after the 5-1 game when Hearts beat Hibs. He was on shows saying, I was feeling the worst in the week leading up to that game. That's how massive Edinburgh derbies are. Because if you lose an Edinburgh derby, you have you're up against it until the next time the teams play again. And I mean, I don't know when the sides play again, but in terms of Hibs, they'll be happening till that next Edinburgh derby. Ryan Portis was giving it all the good vibes in the media this week, saying, I'm looking forward to the game, I'm buzzing, all that kind of stuff. But he did very well in the park. A few fancy moves, a couple of step overs, all that kind of jazzy stuff. But that was all it was, really. And yeah, absolutely fantastic as far as Hearts are concerned. But beating Aberdeen 5-0 Wednesday was a good result as far as Hearts were concerned, considering how Aberdeen are in the hunt for European football and how Hearts want European football again next season. But at exactly the same time, as you say, Edinburgh Derby takes paramount importance and utmost importance over any game against anybody, and I would include Celtic Rangers in that, because the Edinburgh Derby means so much to the residents of Edinburgh and the football supporters that surround Edinburgh.
I'm not going to lie, the build up to that cup final was horrendous. I couldn't sleep for 5 weeks before that game, so I was delighted in the end. Scottish TV Gold says, great result for Hearts. Yes, it is indeed. Scottish TV Gold again to say, it's good to see you aren't on your own tonight, Graham. Liam L, to back up that, even the last game versus Hibs, he said, we will enjoy it tonight, but tomorrow all eyes are on the next match. And again, Scottish TV Gold comes in to say, good to see you too, Dave. So you're a fan's favourite here, Dave. But let's touch, you actually just mentioned him there, Ryan Porteous is probably going to leave Hibs, having never won Edinburgh Derby. What a shame. He looks likely to go, but what next for Hibs now? Because they now have only won one of their last 14 games. A lot of Hibs fans on Twitter that I've seen think that Lee Johnson should be sacked. What now for Hibs?
Well, on Ryan Porteous, first and foremost, Graham, I think the situation's going to be rather fluid. I mean, I haven't really checked. Was there any talk after the game of Porteous at all? No?
I never heard anything that.
No. I think the situation will be rather fluid. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if there's work in the background, because I know obviously Blackburn are interested in Udinese and Italy obviously interested as well. And it wouldn't surprise me if there's work in the background and all that kind of stuff. But the whole thing was maybe kept a little bit internal to focus on today because of the magnitude of the game, because it's such a massive game for both sides. It wouldn't surprise me one bit, because the last thing, Hibs don't want interruptions such as Ryan Porteous being subject to bids. I'm amazed he actually was in front of the media on Friday, considering how he's came a bit of a pantomime villain for Hibs to accept, just because of obviously how people knows he is. But yeah, for Ryan Porteous, it'll be a formality. He's moving on. I think he has to move on in January, because he's got a contract end the season, and if he doesn't move on now, he's going to walk away for free. And there is value in Ryan Porteous. Now, is he everybody's cup of tea? No, but he's an old school defender, and I think there's still value in old school defending. And the defending is an art that's slowly fading away and gelling away. So yeah, what happened to Rocky Bashir, by the way? Because I know obviously Civic scored a fan goal, and then Bashir just went down out of nowhere.
I'm not entirely sure what happened there. I never saw it. I was too busy celebrating the third goal, so I never saw what happened. But it didn't sound like a. I mean,
it looked like he collapsed or something. It looked like he collapsed or something, which I found totally funny. I mean, well, not funny in terms of. I meant to say embarrassment. Funny sounds a little bit disrespectful, considering it could have been something a lot more serious, of course. Yeah, when you look at Hibs moving forward, the big question is Lee Johnson going to survive the season, and is he going to survive the next few weeks? There's a lot of chat. About is Hibs against Aberdeen next Saturday the sack derby, because it's too much under intense pressure. And I mean, Jim Goodwin first and foremost needs to win at Darvel tomorrow night before we even speak about that game at Easter Road Saturday. But Hibs just need to get wins again. The Motherwell one was a good one, but momentum's a big thing in football, and Hibs fans will not accept a win here, a win 5 weeks down the line, and then win in April. No one wins sporadically. No one wins regularly, consistently. If they don't do that, the heads will turn, and the heads have turned with a few managers now. Heckenbottom, Maloney, Johnson, and Stubbs to an extent, but he did turn it around. When things didn't go well in the latter stages of Lennon, he was out the door soon. Fan pressure's a big thing at Hibs, irrespective of owners. And Ron Gordon's very similar to Dave Cormack in terms of They both have the same personalities, and they both have the same thoughts in the game. And it's never the perfect thoughts because there's a lot that's gone wrong with both Hibs and Aberdeen at the precise moment in time. So in terms of Hibs, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the management situation moving forward. Most importantly, to do these signs in the January transfer window. A centre half is a priority because of the injury to Bashiri, but also the impending departure of Ryan Portis. Also, they need additions to the final third because relying on Kevin Nisbet isn't going to answer too many questions as far as Hibs are concerned.
Yeah, and I did notice it was Sean Maloney that was doing the draw today for the Scottish Cup fifth round. Probably the closest ever got to touching the Scottish Cup, but there you go. So yeah, Heart of Midlothian winning by 3-0. They are through to face Hamilton in the next round. The rest of the draw is Celtic against St Mirren. It's Cove or Ayr United against Elgin or Drumchapel United. It is Darvel or Aberdeen against Falkirk. Dundee United against Kilmarnock. Hamilton against Hearts, which I've just mentioned. Linlithgow Rose or Wraith Rovers against Motherwell, Livingston against Inverness or Queen's Park, and Rangers against Partick Thistle. Now, yesterday, Celtic, as expected, did beat Morton by 5-0, but yet again, Dave, VAR played a part because Celtic got a penalty for a handball against Effie Ambrose that was never in a million years a handball. Now, I said this on Friday, the handball rule needs to get worked, it needs to get changed because it's absolutely horrendous. I don't know what Ambrose was meant to do yesterday, and I didn't even see any Celtic players claiming for it. It's an absolute shambles that they got that wrong.
Yeah, I was getting the straight up to Broth yesterday, covering Broth against Motherwell yesterday. Yeah, the texts were coming through on the phone. I was like, oh, what is this? I wonder. And then I seen on Twitter and the incident, and I was like, Jesus Christ. It almost spoiled the game. It almost spoiled the game. Now, from a TV and broadcaster perspective, I don't think Celtic Morton should have been at a pick, right?
Neither do I.
But at exactly the same time, you want games that are close. You want games that have a bit of a needle to them, and you want games that have a bit of a nip and tuck feel to them. After Celtic got that penalty and Otway went and scored it, it was a one-sided. I hate to say a one-sided affair, but it was comfortable, and you felt sorry for Morton in the end, especially with the game being live on telly because of that atrocious decision from Kevin Clancy. The only thing as well, before you go on, pardon me, I just remembered the fact that Clancy gets told to go to the monitor, look at it, and I know in normal situations with VAR, if you get told to go to the monitor 9 times out of 10 it's a penalty. But at exactly the same time, Clancy doesn't think it's a penalty at that time, then gets told by VAR to go over, gets another look at it, and still thinks it's a penalty.
Actually, when I saw him coming back after looking at the monitor, I initially thought he doesn't really want to give that. But then in my head, I'm thinking, maybe if he thinks he doesn't give that, he's going to get pulled up in front of the coals. But that, for me, I mean, the ball, it takes a deflection off the Morton defender on Ambrose's hand. How on earth can that be a penalty? Seriously, how on earth can that be a penalty kick? I do not understand the rules anymore.
You basically just can't play with no hands. It's as simple as that.
I think you're going to put your hands behind your back, but even then, it's a scandalous decision. But I mean, Celtic, they were in the end very clinical. They didn't make a lot of changes, and actually, James Elliott mentioned it in the group chat. It looks like Josef Juranovic is away to Union Berlin for £10 million. It's a good deal for Celtic and a good deal for Juranovic.
Yeah, I think the deal is done. So fair play to Juranovic for that, of course, because it's a good move as far as Juranovic is concerned. But that also opens the door for Alistair Johnson to go and get more games for Celtic now, because that was ultimately what he was brought in the door to do, because of the impending departure of Juranovic, of course. But yeah, I think when you look at how Celtic could obviously evolve from this, it was a strong result, ultimately helped by the referee and the officials. But Juranovic, he's had a good time at Celtic, and it kind of faded away a little bit towards the end because of transfer gossip. I don't think that should rust over was a fine spell for him at the East End of Glasgow. It was all with springboard for him to get a better move, and that's exactly how it proved to be.
Liam L says, does Celtic's public and formal complaints play a part in this? I'm not sure. I mean, Celtic have been very vocal in the fact that they've not had a lot of decisions go their way, and now in the space of 2 weeks, they've had 2 going their way. I mean, the handball rule for me needs to be changed. It needs to be either deliberate or not deliberate, because that yesterday, if that goes against you, you'd be absolutely furious.
Yeah. I'll try and make some hand movements here, Graham, right? So apologies if you're listening on radio. Right, I'll try and put my laptop here. So if ball comes at the box, if cross comes at the box, player heads it, my hands are out wide here, and it goes, I'll watch what I do. So, and it touches my hand, and I don't move my hand. Penalty, right? 100% a penalty. If a shot goes towards goal from, I'll give you an example, 15 yards out, and I could move my hand, but I don't move my hand, and it goes clap, goes and touches my hand. Again, another penalty, because it's plain and obvious and deliberate, as you say. If there's a cross comes in the box or shot or whatever have you, and I try and move my body like this, and I try and move this, and I obviously can't move my hands. It's not deliberate, because I've tried to move my body. I've tried to obviously deny my team a penalty, and I've tried to do everything in my power to make sure I'm not penalised for that. If there's a situation where you're being clumsy, basically what I'm trying to say is, where there's a situation where you're clumsy, penalty. Where there's a situation where there's a certain body language that allows you to obviously do things, no penalty. And there's a lack of inconsistency in that regard.
100%. On another game from yesterday, Rangers obviously got through. They obviously play Partick Thistle now. Dave, I mean, Rangers in the end won the game 1-0. I thought St Johnstone played okay, but again, what did you make of the fact that St Johnstone gave up 3 stands and only in the end about 300 home fans of that game?
Yeah, I found the whole thing terribly disappointing. I could fully understand all the VAR implications and everything like that, but I was counting up, and there was 7,500 there yesterday. I was counting it, and had St Johnstone got minimum 5,000 people there, they'd still had at least £100,000 gate money in a bank accounts, plus the TV money, plus the money that they've got from the SFA. £100,000 is a lot of money for a Premiership club, but at exactly the same time, it'd have been a bit of a payday for St Johnstone, considering they probably wouldn't get that way. Livingston's and Hamilton's and Kilmarnock's and who else? I'm sure Motherwell's, they've been struggling to obviously get that because of the standard of clubs and everything that surrounds that, of course. But yeah, I found the whole thing disappointing. St Johnstone have done a lot right this season because they've had the appointment of Ian Flaherty as head of football operations. But this is a real black mark for Ian, this, because there's a lot of uncertainty in that club because of what happened yesterday, but also Steve Brown. I think it's Steve Brown. Oh, it's either Steve or Jeff, right? It's one of the two.
Jeff Brown,
Jeff, was it?
Yeah.
Jeff obviously leaving his position as chairman at the end of the season. So Johnstone are usually an organised club. They're one of the most organised in Scottish football, or they have been prior to this season. Now, there's a cloud of uncertainty surrounding that club, and that's what I'm going to find extremely interesting. For me, I'd have had 2 stands. I'd have had the stand adjacent to the main stand, because that's where the St Johnstone ultras go, who get a fantastic atmosphere on match days, I may add. I mean, St Johnstone do get criticised from time to time, but what I would say is, in comparison to other teams, St Johnstone do bring good good crowds at times. The fact that they only got 300 yesterday was a pretty dire look as far as they were concerned. And there was a lot of people, including journalists, saying on Twitter, they felt like a home game for Rangers because they got, 6,500 people there. Now, for everybody that usually doesn't get an away ticket for Rangers because of obviously life memberships or subscriptions or membership points or how long they've supported the club or whatever have you, Rangers fans hit the jackpot yesterday because of the fact they got 7,000 tickets, it allowed them to basically give tickets to season ticket holders. Also, I'm presuming there was a general sale on it for yesterday's game as well because that's how these things work. I mean, they'd have done very, very well to sell 7,000 tickets anyway, but that's basically the Rangers obviously sell about 40,000, 45,000 for home games, but that's, I'm trying to do my maths here, that's 10% of what they would get at Ibrox, which is very, very good to say the least. From their perspective, of course. As for the game, comfortable for Rangers. I mean, Johnston did try and create their own authority, but I think a few impending matters, such as what happened with the crowd situation, didn't work in their favour. And Rangers, in comparison to the last game when Van Bronckhorst was in charge, they've got a much more balance and much more organisation about their play. And that was shown because Michael Beale again showed a lot of composure on the touchline. And in turn, that turned on the part because Rangers just with their professional performances see them through and into the next round.
Yeah, talking of professionalism, that's a good link there. One team who I thought might be on the end of a shock yesterday, I think a few folk did, was Motherwell. They went to Gayfield and they comfortably, in the end, beat Arbroath by 2-0. 2 goals from Michael Mandron. That was a big, big win for Stevie Hamill's men because they had been struggling.
Yeah, that was the first win in 8 yesterday, which is very, very good to say the least. And I mean, I wasn't sure what to think about Motherwell prior to the game because I knew they'd been a bad run. I knew the run had been very, very poor. But I thought Motherwell were playing with a bit of an authority yesterday. Spittle, McKinstry and Sean Goss were very, very good in midfield. Motherwell were playing a 4-3-3 and it worked very, very well for them. And both did start the game very, very well yesterday, but I haven't checked the stats from yesterday, but William Kelly didn't have a lot to do. And it was a very quiet, a very quiet afternoon. Darkwa had a chance. McKenna had a chance, and Elmani had a few shots wide. Apart from that, I'm still got to think of anything that really struck to mind for Arbroath yesterday. They got into good areas, but what Arbroath have been identical doing this season is it's pass, wide area, pass. And it's when they're under pressure, it is a cross into the box. But if not, it's been pass it out wide, try and work your way in. They're a very patient side, which I find very very weird in all aspects, considering Dick Campbell's usually a direct football man. He's obviously a man that plays football on the ground and plays passing football, but he's a very direct manager as well. So I'm a little bit surprised a bit about that. I don't know if it's because of obviously the players they have or what, but I mean, a lot of the players, a lot of the midfielders, will get a lot of the credit for obviously the victory. And Mondron will get credit as well. Mondron scores the 2 goals, but I think the quality of the midfield allows Mondron to go and score those 2 goals. And that could be a good thing for Motherwell moving forward. The fact that Motherwell have that quality, but McKinstry and Goss and everything that surrounds that, and then you've got a good striker in Mandron who does have a physical presence around and go and score goals, can only be a good thing for Motherwell moving forward. I mean, Mandron's first start yesterday, sometimes the first striker coming in, especially to replace somebody like Van Veen, who wasn't injured or wasn't ill or anything, he was just dropped, is a positive sign as far as Motherwell's concerned. And, in the next round to go. And had they got beat yesterday, there'd been a level of apprehension inside Fair Park. But the one, it's a turning point. Brings a new dimension to Motherwell, and on they go.
someone who did get beat yesterday, and it's not been great for him so far, is Malcolm Mackay, whose Ross County side were knocked out on penalties by Hamilton. I mean, again, how big a blow is that going to be for Malcolm Mackay?
Do you think he's under pressure? Because I think he is. I've seen Roy McGregor. I think I've seen Roy McGregor sack managers for less. Yet none of the Highland media are suggesting it, and none of the Ross County fans are suggesting it. Now they're suggesting the fact that Ross County have always signed, is it the boy Kenny from Hibs, Jonah Kenny or something?
Yeah, Jonah Kenny, yeah.
Yeah, they've always signed him on loan, right? On loan, right? It's a signing, but it doesn't bring much optimism. And I think that was something that was acknowledged by County fans I've seen on social media. They're not too pleased. And they have been rumoured with a couple of players, but Roy McGregor usually backs his managers. It's funny how they've only had one signing through the door. Because I know Dingwall's a hard place to get players geographically, because obviously it's a very isolated part of Scotland, because obviously there's not as much to do in the Highlands as there is maybe in the Central Belt, such as Edinburgh and Glasgow, but at exactly the same time. Yeah, it's interesting to see where and why Ross County are struggling to attract players, because Ross County in the past have taken players from obviously bigger clubs in Scottish football and English clubs, and they've settled in and made the Highlands their home, because you've seen that with players such as Carl Tremarco and Josh Meekins and Richard Britton and all these players who are based up in the Highlands now, and they've all been in clubs down the road and went up to the Highlands and called the Highlands their home. But as for Hamilton, what a fantastic result for them again. Building on what was a fantastic win at home to Morton last weekend, because that was a very strong victory. You get the feeling that it's hard to get spoken about out with Hamilton. You get the feeling that Hamilton are turning the corner. You get the feeling that Hamilton are going in a different direction. And let's be honest, I thought Hamilton were massively underwhelming whenever I've watched them this season so far. I'm getting a different feel about them now. 2 wins, that's 2 excellent wins now. And that's because the Morton side is fighting for promotion to the Premiership, and Ross County, who are in the Premier League. So that's some going. And they can take a lot of confidence from that. A good tie against Hearts for a club that doesn't attract a big budget or massive money financially. It's a bit of a payday getting the Hearts, if I'm going to be honest, because Hearts will bring a good travelling support, and yeah, it'll be a small payday for Hamilton, I reckon.
I'm hoping that game's going to be televised, because that could be a decent game, actually. We've got about 8 minutes to go. It's been great getting all your comments in. But one team that is going to be televised, we have to talk about the game tomorrow, Dave. It's Darvel against Aberdeen. Darvel, West of Scotland Premier League side. They've scored 42 goals in 13 games this season against an Aberdeen side who are under a lot of pressure. I mean, how you would imagine Aberdeen should win this game, but they're very vulnerable just now.
Yeah. It's interesting to see where they're at, because did I see Wednesday's 5-0 defeat the Hearts coming? No, I did think Hearts would win the game. We're going to go win the game on Wednesday, but the margin of the scoreline makes it bitterly disappointing. And Aberdeen can beat 1 or 2-0 Wednesday. I don't think the criticism and the abhorrent scenes that we've seen towards Jim Goodwin wouldn't have been as severe. But Liam has touched on it here, and he won't be the only one that has mentioned that this could be a Brona Hearts moment. Because, let's be honest, Brona were I know it was lockdown when Brona beat Hearts, but Brona had been a good team irrespective. And it was just an off night for Hearts. But then at exactly the same time, Hearts were doing really, really well in the Championship. Well, Aberdeen are ratting just now. And you get the feeling that Darvel, and I mean this with all due respect to Bruna here, you get the feeling that Darvel are much more organised than Bruna would be. It's massively winnable for Darvel. It's going to be Aberdeen's mentality, Aberdeen's attitude, and Aberdeen's overall courage of the game is going to be very fascinating to see, because for me, Jim Goodwin gets pass marks if he wins 3-0 and is comfortable, or it's 2-0 is comfortable. If it's an ugly 1-0, good at getting through, but I don't think it'll go down well with Aberdeen fans because after Wednesday's debacle, the knives are out for Goodwin. The knives have been out for a while, but I think the Scottish Cup, pardon me, I think the Viaplay Cup semi final papered over the cracks a little bit because of just how well Aberdeen were set up tactically against Rangers. Otway Rangers just had enough quality about them in the end, and Anthony Stewart getting sent off didn't help matters. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Aberdeen set up tomorrow. I think Jim Goodwin will respect Darvel, or I think he should. I think he will play a strong lineup. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they get on. So yeah, I think it's going to be a fascinating one. But let's speak about Darvel here. Again. It's a massive occasion for him. It's not only a massive occasion for Darvel; it's a massive occasion for the town and for the community of Darvel. It's a big moment for that football club. They've had some good moments in the Scottish Cup already. They beat Stranraer last year, beat Brecon in a replay. Otway just ran out steam against Arbroath last season in the Scottish, but beat Montrose very handsomely this season. I think it was 5-2, it was 5-2 away at Montrose, and that was a strong victory because Montrose were doing well prior to that point. And let's be honest, it ruined the momentum of Montrose. So that's just how strong and big a victory that was for Darvel. But they're the highest scorers in the Scottish Cup this season. And let's be honest, if Darvel can beat Aberdeen tomorrow, they've also got a never winnable tie against Falkirk in the next round as well. So there's incentive for Darvel here.
100%. I mean, the manager, Michael Kennedy, I'm sure they'll watch Aberdeen, they'll see the defensive failures. I mean, you just talked about it. I think it's a sellout tomorrow. They've got about 2,200 that ground holds at Recreation Park. This is going to be an absolutely massive tie for Aberdeen and Darvel. And if Aberdeen take Darvel lightly, and I don't think they will, this could be a potential shock here.
And the chairman, the chairman of Darvel, John Gall, says they could have sold an extra 500 tickets. But Aberdeen were being a bit moany, he was mentioning, because one of the suggestions was that the Aberdeen fans were going to be beside the dugout. But then I think if Aberdeen been getting beat 1-0 or 2-0 or something like that tomorrow, I think it'd have been something like that. Absolutely lambasted the dugout. So it's maybe a good idea not to. All it means Aberdeen got a lesser allocation, but I think it's going to be a terrific occasion for all involved at Darvel. I mean, for Aberdeen, the assignment is simple: be professional, get the win, but win handsomely. Because then a 1-0 ugly, I don't think will settle well with Aberdeen fans because you know yourself, and you'll encompass this yourself, Graham, where if Hearts don't play well in games, but still win 2-0, for example, or they're ugly 1-0s, you're happy with a win, aren't you? But also at exactly the same time, you're saying to yourself, I'm not happy with this, I'm disappointed with this, I think we could be doing better than this, I'm critical of this. And that's exactly things that will resemble with Aberdeen, resonate with Aberdeen if they don't do the basics well tomorrow night. So professional performance required from them. But for Darvel, a free hit. Massively a free hit. Also, as I said, there's incentive there for Darvel as well.
Absolutely. I mean, again, I go on Twitter quite a lot, and I saw a lot of Aberdeen fans raging after the Hearts game. I can't imagine what it would be like if they were to lose to Darvel tomorrow.
Oof. It'll be pandemonium.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a couple of guys in the chat that are Aberdeen fans, and they were furious. But yeah, I mean, what's your prediction for tomorrow?
My head's telling me 2-0 Aberdeen, so I'm going to go 2-0 Aberdeen. Do
you know what? I'm going to go. I think it'll be a difficult game for Aberdeen, but I do think they'll win. I'm probably going to go 2-0 as well. It'll be tough, but I think Aberdeen probably will get through. So that is it for tonight. Thank you again to Dave Smith for joining me. Thank you for all your comments. I am still obviously buzzing because if anyone didn't know, and I don't know why you wouldn't, Hearts beat Hibs earlier on in the Scottish Cup 4th round. We now play Hamilton in the 5th round. We will be back on Friday. Hopefully Malcolm McEwen's back on Friday from 5 o'clock till 7. And then we will be back on Sunday again from 3 until 5. Thank you everyone for joining me. Again, thank you to Dave Smith for joining me. It's been another very busy show, and we shall see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.